Hi friends, welcome to the channel. You are watching 4th episode of Git Mastery series. In our previous episode, we learned how to create your first Git repository, understand the Git workflow, and make your first commit. In this video, we are going to dive deeper into the staging area. You already know that files need to be staged before committing. But did you know there is a way to commit changes without staging them? Well, we will cover it here. We will also explore the short status command, which gives you more concise view compared to the standard git status, helping you interpret file states more easily. Before committing, it's important to review what have been changed, and I will show you how to do that. Plus, we look at how you can compare changes using both the command line and GUI tool. Another key skill is unstaging a file once it's been staged, and we will practice that in this video. Finally, we will cover how to discard the local changes. It's going to be a detailed session with plenty to learn, so let's jump right now. Now, let's start by looking at how to commit changes while skipping the staging area. A beginner developer commonly asks if they always need to stage the changes before committing it to the Git. Well, the answer is no. I will show you how to commit the changes by passing the staging area. But be careful when doing this. Only do this if you are 100% confident about your changes. Reviewing the changes before committing is always good practice. Now, let's make some changes to the file and check this in action. Opening Visual Studio Code, I am going to make changes to this contributing.md file. Let's add a new line here, adding myself as contributor, giving my email address, and save this. Back to the terminal. Here you can see the indicator turns yellow, indicating our working directory is dirty, meaning we have some unstaged changes. Let me show you. Git status. Here you can see this file is modified and have not been staged yet. Now let's commit the change. This time, instead of two-step process, that is first adding the file to the staging area and then make the commit, we are going to skip the intermediate staging step and commit the changes directly. We can do this using git commit. Then we need to provide the option -a. This option automatically stays all the modified and deleted files that are already being checked by Git and then commit them. Then we need to provide a commit message. We can also combine these two options together. Then provide the commit message. Commit without stage. Again, this is not a good commit message. Our commit should be based on logical unit of work, not on individual files added or removed. Now, commit. Git provides the statistics about the file that have been committed and a commit hash. Now we will explore Git short status. Let me show you why we need this short status. For that, first I will make some changes. In Visual Studio Code, let's make some changes in README file. Here I am adding a new line and also adding a new file. Say it license.txt. Now back to the terminal. Run git status. Here we have two changes in our working directory. Modification of the README file and new unchecked file. That is the new file that we have just created. As you can see, the output is quite detailed and helpful, but it is also a bit wordy. Git also offers a more compact option with short status flag, which gives you simplified overview of the changes. That is git status, then we need to provide the option --short. We can also use the shorthand -s. Here you can see much cleaner and more concise output. It is easier to read, but it is a bit different. Let me explain this. Each line of this output consists of 3 columns. The first column, here you can see this green mark on the left represents the staging area. The second column on the right, this highlighted portion represents our working directory. Then we have a space. Then on the third column, we have the file name. We have updated this README file but have not staged it yet. So we have this M in the second column, meaning modification. but the left column, that is our first column, is blank. That is because we have not staged the changes yet. For the license.txt file, we have this 2 question mark. It indicates this file is new and untracked. You can check my previous video to know more about untracked file. Clear the console. This time, let's stage readme file. Now, check git short status, git status -s. You can see we have now m in the first column, meaning the changes of the readme file is now staged. Second column is blank as we do not have any unstaged modification in this readme file. As I have mentioned in my previous video that when a file is staged, Git takes a snapshot of it and save it to the staging area. If you modify the file again after you have staged the changes, it will be treated as new modification. If you want to stage the new modification along with the old staged version of the file, you need to stage it again. Let's see it there. In this readme file, add another line, save. Once again, check the status. Here you can see m in both columns. M in the left column indicates we have staged the readme file, but the right M indicates we have unstaged changes in the working directory. Now stage this readme file again. Short status one more time. This time we only have M in the first column. We have staged all the changes. Now let's focus on this license.txt file. I will add this to the staging area. Git add license.txt. Git status one more time. Here in the first column, the status A is added for license.txt file. A means added. The status of readme remains same. This is how the short status work. At this point, we have 2 files that have been staged. Now let's see how we can review the changes. It's important to check them before committing to avoid adding broken code to the repository. As a best practice, always review what's in the staging area before committing. Git status command only shows which files are affected. But to see the exact changes that we have made, we need to use a separate command, that is git diff. To view the changes staged for the next commit, use git diff --staged. This command shows the exact line that were added or removed in the staging area and will be included in the next commit. As you can see, checking changes in the command line is not always a user-friendly experience. Later in this video, I will show you how to review changes using GUI tool for better experience. However, it is still important to understand the terminal output. There may be situations where you don't have access to the visual tools, or during an interview, you might ask to explain the output of the command. So, being able to interpret and explain it is crucial. Now, take a look at the command output. At the top, this diff utility has been called. Here, we are comparing 2 versions of the same file. This license.txt refers to the old version and this license.txt refers to the new version from the staging area. I will explain it later. Let's start with our second diff call. Here as before, we are comparing 2 versions of the same readme file. This one is the old version, that is what we have in our last commit. And this newer version is what we have in our staging area. These prefixes A and B are not actual directories. They are just placeholders to show the before and after version of the file. After that, we have metadata. This is actually not that important. Then we have changes from the old copy, that is indicated by the minus sign, and changes in the new copy, that is marked with the plus sign. Lines marked with the minus sign are from the old version of the file, and those with the plus sign are from the newer staged version. Next, we have the section called hang header. This header provides the information about which part of the file has been changed. In our example, the file is short with only a few lines of text. But in real world scenario, file open contains hundreds of lines of code. If you change only a few lines, Git won't show you the entire file. It divides it into chunks. What we see here is a single chunk. Each chunk comes with a header that gives you context about where the changes have occurred within the file. Here the first part 1, 3. This prefixed with the minus sign indicating it refers to the old copy of the file from the last commit. It indicates that 3 lines from the original file starting at line 1 are being shown. Similarly, the second segment 1, 5 refers to the new staged changes. It indicates that 5 lines from the new version also starting from the 1 are displayed. The plus means these lines have changed in the new staged file. This is the chunk of the output of the readme file. Now back to this command. Here this diff command is called and we are comparing the two versions of the same license.txt file. This is the older version. As we have just added this file, so there is no older version. We will discover it in a second. Next we have the newer version. After that we have this metadata which is not that important. And you can see there is no hang header and no changes provided. We have just created this file but have not added any content here. So there is no changes within the file. Let's make some changes in the license file and check it using diff command. In our license file, let's add a line. Now back to the terminal. Stage the license file. Now run the diff command -- staged. Here this time output is little bit different. This diff utility is called. It's comparing the older version of license.txt which actually does not exist for the newly added file with the newer version of the file that is in the staging area. Next we have this metadata. The changes from the old version are indicated with the minus sign and changes with the new version are marked with the plus sign. Here you can see we have this diff/null. This refers to the source of the file being null. It means that the file did not exist before the change. Then we have the hang header. This portion with minus sign indicates the changes in old version. It indicates that the chunk starts at line 0 in the original file and 0 lines are being extracted. Since the file did not exist before, there's nothing to extract. This part refers to the new file after the change. It indicates that the hang starts at line 1 in the new file. In this case, it means that one line is being added starting at line 0. And here this line is from the license file. This plus sign indicates this line has added. So we have observed how to check the changes in the staging area. Exit from it by pressing Q. We can use git diff -- staged to check the changes that have been staged for the next commit. If we do not provide this staged option, just diff command, we can now check the changes in our working directory. In that case, we will compare the unstaged change with the staged change. Let me show you. Here we have nothing because we have staged all the changes. So exit from it by pressing Q. Now let's edit the readme file. Update this line. Back to the terminal. Now run git status -s. Here for the readme file we have both staged changes and some modifications that are not yet staged. Now if we run git diff, we can see the changes made in our working directory compared to what is in the staging area. Here diff utility is called and comparing the two versions of our readme file. This is old version which is in currently staged and this one is the new version from our working directory. Then we have the metadata. There we have changes in the old copy that is marked with minus sign and changes in the new copy that is marked with plus sign. After that we have hang header. This first option indicates the chunk from the old file. This minus sign indicates the old version. Here 5 lines is extracted starting from line 1. The second portion is for the new version. Plus sign indicates new changes. 5 lines is extracted from new version of readme file starting from line 1. Here is the content of the file. You can see we had this line in the staging area. This indicates by minus sign. This line have been changed. The line with the plus sign below is modified lines in the working directory. To recap, running git diff --test show the difference between the staging area and the last commit. On the other hand, using git diff without any options, compare the changes between your working directory and staging area. Always review the changes that you have in the staging area before making commit. Let's say after reviewing, you realize that there are some code in the readme file that should not be in the next commit. Maybe these changes are logically part of the different task. So we need to unstage it. Let's do it. In Git, we can use the command git restore to restore the file to an earlier state. Then we can provide the option --staged. These indicate we want to unstage something, followed by a space, then the name of the file that we want to unstage. We can also use the pattern to unstage the file that matches this pattern. We can also use wildcard period to unstage all the files. Here we want to just unstage readme file. So our file is unstaged. Let's check it. Git status -s. Here for our readme file, the working directory column is showing m, but the column indicating staging area is blank, meaning our readme file is no longer the part of the staging area. Now let's unstage our license file. Git restore --staged. Now the file name license.txt. Check the git status again. Here we have 2 question marks before this license.txt file, meaning this file is now unchecked. We have covered how to view changes in the command line. Now let's explore how to do this using a graphical user interface. Most modern IDE comes with built-in Git tools. You can also use other graphical user interface of Git like Git-Kraken or SourceTree for this purpose. Here I am going to show you how you can do it with the help of Visual Studio Code. In Visual Studio Code, there is a dedicated menu for Git. You can access it by clicking this icon. Under Source Control, you can see we have this section named Changes. This section lists all the files and changes that are in our working directory and have not been staged yet. Here we have license.txt file and readme file. If you check this readme file, you can see that the file is opened in a split window. This shows the difference between the 2 versions of our readme file, the unstaged version of the file from our working directory and the staged version of the file. The left window shows the old version of the file from the staging area, and the right window is the unstaged change from the working directory. At the moment, there is nothing new in the staging area. So, you might wonder how we are able to compare local changes with staged version of the file. Well, when a file is not staged, the staging area holds an exact copy of the file as it was in the last commit. This allows us to compare the local changes with the last committed version. This makes it easier to understand that the staging area retains the last committed snapshot of a file when no new changes have been staged yet. Instead of viewing the changes side by side, this tool also lets you view the changes inline. To do this, go to the top right corner of the Visual Studio Code and click on the 3-dot icon. From the pop-up menu, select Inline View. Now, you can see all changes in a single file. You can also modify the file directly in this view. For example, if you edit a line, you will immediately see the difference. The old line marked with the minus sign will be highlighted in red, while the new line marked with the plus sign will be highlighted in green. Now let's switch back to the side-by-side view. From the pop-up menu, simply uncheck the inline view option. You can now see the changes displayed side by side with the older version on one side and the modified version on the other. With this tool, you can easily stage files. Just click on this plus sign next to the file name and it will be added to the staging area. You will notice a new section called Staged Changes appear, which was not there before since we did not have any staged files. If you open the README files in the staging area, you can view the difference between the staged change and the version currently in the repository. The left window shows the older committed version of the file and the right window displays the changes that are now in the staging area. Now let's modify the README file while it's staged. Open the File Explorer, find the README file and add a new line. After making the changes, go back to the source control panel. You can notice that the README file now appears in both the staged changes and unstaged changes section. If you check the unstaged version, it shows the difference between the staged changes and newly updated version in the working directory. The left window shows the version of the file from the staging area, while the right window displays the unstaged changes. Green highlight with the plus sign indicates the newly added line, and the red highlight with a minus sign shows the line that existed in the previous version. Now you can also unstage this file from this tool. Just click on this minus icon beside the file name. Now our file is unstaged and it now appearing only in the changes section. You can also commit the changes using this tool. Let's stage both of the files, and here in this input field you can provide the commit message and click on this commit button. It will commit the changes. I'm not going to commit right now. Feel free to explore this GUI tool. You can see visualizing the difference using the GUI tools provide a much better user experience. It is easy to review the changes if you use visual tool. Now let's switch back to the terminal and unstage all files. Let's talk about how to discard local changes. Sometimes we have code in our working directory that we want to throw away. For example, you might make some changes but later decide you don't need them and want to start over from scratch. In this case, we can discard local changes using the git restore command. For example, if we have some local changes in the README file and want to undo them, we type git restore. Previously, we used -- staged option to unstage files, but here we don't need that option since we are discarding local changes. Instead, we just provide the file name like readme. When we execute this command, Git will take the version of the file from the next stage, which is our staging environment. So it is going to take that version and copy it into our working directory. We can also use the period here to undo all local changes at once. Let me show you something interesting. After executing the restore command, let's check the status again. So our readme file is no longer there because the changes were discarded. However, the license file is still present. Why is that? Well, this license file is new and untracked file, meaning Git is not tracking this. So when we ask Git to restore it, Git doesn't know where to get the previous version of the file because it doesn't exist in the staging area or in the repository. So to remove all untracked files, we have to use another command, that is git clean. If we run this command, by default we get this fatal error saying require force defaults to true. This is because Git considers this a dangerous operation. If you accidentally remove these untracked files, you can't recover them. So how do we safely discard untracked file? Let's ask Git for help. To get help from Git command line, we can write git clean -h for quick help. This shows quick guide on how to use the command. Here we have the option -f, which forces Git to remove untracked files. We have also another option -d to remove whole directory. So quite often we use these two options together like this, git clean -fd, to forcefully remove every untracked files and directory. So let's execute it. Now check the status. Our license file is gone. This is how we undo local changes. Now we have learned how to unstage files and discard local changes. But what if you accidentally committed changes that should not have been committed? Or maybe you want Git to ignore certain files or directories like binary files or log files. How do you do that? Well, we'll cover that in the next video. Just click on the video that appears on the right to learn more. And if you are interested in how to configure Git, check out my previous video from the link on the left. Hope you enjoyed this. See you in the next video.